I'm so excited for this discussion. This is such an important topic for our time, for our world today, Stacey. Wow, what an important topic that we need to all be talking about and thinking about as we go into the world. And welcome to Skills Not Pills movement. We are live and really excited that you're joining us today. I'm your host, Carrie Hummingbird. And I wanted to let you know that the Skills Not Pills movement is an oasis of hope and inspiration where you can learn self-mastery skills and become your own health CEO. It is a community of like-minded people who know that healing and total transformation are possible because we have claimed our own cures. And check out our free live event coming up on Monday, September 10th, Dare to Believe You Can Heal. And Stacey Lemire Martin, who's on the call with us today, is one of the experts, is going to share with us on our first live event. So really excited to have you here, Stacey. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me.
So today we're going to have a difficult discussion. We're going to talk about suicide. We've had so many suicides happening in our society, famous people, people in our families, people that are friends, people we've known for a long time, people in our community. And it's a serious issue in our world today. And so today, Stacey and I both have a little bit of experience with this. And so we're both going to talk about ways that we can take proactive steps if we're noticing that a loved one or somebody that we know is having some signs that this could be an impending situation. And also, how do you cope with it when somebody has decided to make that choice? How do you cope with that? So Stacey, if you don't know already, she has used her advanced training for over 2 decades in numerous healing and personal development modalities, along with her personal experience of healing her own mind and body to empower others through their own healing processes. Through empowerment and life after loss coaching using higher brain living, hypnosis, NLP, Awaken Slimmer, and more, she now gets the satisfaction of helping her clients find what they need to empower them to heal their mind, body, and spirit. So welcome, Stacey. So glad you're here. This is a really brave conversation for you to have. I know it's not the first time you've had this conversation.
Actually, I don't have this conversation very much, which
Very
is why I
often.
think I need to.
Okay.
I think it's time to open that door. Death happens, number one, and we're not comfortable with death in our society. And so when a suicide happens, it's more than just a death, of course, and everyone wants to know why. And so there's so much going on with suicide, and who isn't touched by it? As you said, everyone, it seems, is somehow touched by suicide.
Mm-hmm.
I've had a number of them in my experience, including being suicidal myself
Mm-hmm.
in my teens. So why don't we talk about that a little bit first? I know
Yeah.
you've had experience with that. What's your experience with suicide?
Oh, personal desire to escape this torture. And now it's not a torture for me anymore, but through a lot of my life, it felt like torture to be alive. For a lot of my life, like I got into these really dense, dark, difficult, challenging spaces in my life where not only were the external circumstances of my life very challenging, but the internal experience of living in this body and this mind and my emotions were also really super challenging. And, I've had to learn how to navigate those times that I start feeling that, because it's not over. I still get these really dense times from time to time. I'll get a dense pocket where, I'll go into this time frame where out of the blue, now it's like dense again. There's difficult things arising, hard feelings, challenging feelings in my body. And the way that I navigate that now is just the total awareness that, number one, in my belief system, in my inner knowing, there is no escape. So
Deal,
that,
baby.
that, that right there helps me every time, because
Mhm.
once I started making that realization, because I'm like, oh yeah, that's right. You can't escape. So you have, it's like the marathon that you can't just quit. Like once you begin it, you've got to go all the way to the end and finish it.
Yes.
That is the thing that I keep reminding myself. And so when I get in those moments, I go, oh, that's right. I can't quit, because if I quit, I'll come back and do the same thing again. So might as well do it now. And the second thing that gets me out of it is I go, okay, this is something that's being released from my being. Like this uncomfortable feeling is really just a sign that there's something in my inner matrix that I'm actually releasing that I no longer need. And once I release it, it'll be gone and I'll feel a lot better, you know? So I remind myself of those two basic things. Those are the two things I'll start with in this discussion.
Beautiful. I love that. So that gives me a great lead into who's at risk. Who's at risk? Kids that are different, that feel different, that don't feel connected to others around them because they're different inside, and so they don't feel seen or heard or understood. That's how it was for me. I was in theater, and people had a lot of opinions about my choice. And they had a lot of opinions about who I was because of my choice. And I lived in that feeling of being different and being alone and misunderstood. And so that's what caused my frustrations. I also lived with a man who was mentally ill and a mother who was codependent. So who didn't do that?
So many of us.
Yeah, right. And then I recreated that mental illness in my own life, which I then had to disavow and heal myself of, which is, why I love you so much. But yeah, so who's at risk? So people who are loners, not people who love to be alone. That's different. People who are loners, who really, they look awkward, and they're not necessarily introverts. That some people can put on a really good face, a really good game face. And so you don't know what's going on with them internally. So that's, how do you recognize those people?
And there's also like people that just are, that need some skills around managing their internal combustion system. It's like, because in my case as a teenager, when I made my attempt, really, I was looking for attention. I wanted so the backstory, I was 15, 16 maybe. And my dad came home from work early one day to find a boy in my room. And yeah, I was getting intimate with this boy in my room. I had just finished. So luckily I didn't see that part. But I had such shame that my dad walked in on that, and he was so uncomfortable with it, and that I didn't know what to do with that. And the inner shame, which was what part of my life journey, this dance with shame, the first part of my life journey, it overwhelmed me, and my response to that was self-harm. So I think that sometimes people have these patterns of either reacting, like big reactions that wasn't a small thing, but big reactions to things that are temporary.
Right.
Or, not knowing how to communicate effectively. Like, you're not listening to me, or you're not here, and I don't know how to tell you, listen, I'm feeling suicidal. Like, I don't know how to speak it.
Right.
And, not knowing how to ask for help.
Yes. Well, just even getting into that situation of feeling overwhelmed with emotions that you don't know what to do with or how to handle it. We don't have those tools. Public school teaches us a lot of things. And wonderful schools like Montessori and Waldorf and spectacular private schools, some of them have programs in there where kids are self-actualized. They learn that. But the average person growing up in the world today doesn't have those tools and skills. So we've got to give them to the adults so they in turn can teach them to their kids. Don't you think?
It's very true. And as parents, when we're noticing our children, do they have a pattern of self-harm? Because really, that is what suicide is. It's the ultimate self-harm. It's like, I'm taking myself out of the situation. So, is your kid judging themselves harshly? Do they over punish themselves when they make a mistake? Do they really like beat themselves up every single time like they get a bad grade or somebody doesn't like them? Do they internalize it and take it all personally?
Mm-hmm.
Are they cutting? A lot of teens are cutting now to cope with their feelings because they don't know how to cope.
They need a release.
And they need a release. And so that's the only way they can feel is if they're like cutting themselves. It's
right.
So these are things to look for, and kids hide that stuff, by the way.
Yeah, they do.
They hide it. And so here's a little trick behind that I unfortunately had to figure out is that if they're cutting, they're usually cutting someplace that you're not looking. And they're usually doing it in such a way that it's so light on the surface that only a little bit of blood comes out. And then they'll like wash it in the sink, let it dry, and then come out so that you wouldn't even see red marks. Like they might even wear wristbands all of a sudden, like just start wearing like really thick wristbands. So you want to start paying attention. Like, what's your kid doing differently that they haven't done before? Is their mood really low? Like, do they seem depressed?
Yes. Are they not hanging out with their friends as usual? Are they going out more often or hiding in their room? There are a lot of signs. We've seen now, I just recently saw a video and a lot of the statistics came from the World Health Organization. So, what's real news anymore today? But, statistically they say in the last 45 years, the suicide rate has gone up 60%. And at highest risk, of course, are kids.
Yeah.
And I didn't know until my daughter's suicide that it goes all the way up to like age 24, from 15 to 24. And it's the third leading cause of death in that age group. That's crazy.
Talk a little bit about your experience with your daughter, because it makes sense to me. We know about neuroscience. We know that the brain is not fully formed until people are about 24. So it makes sense to me. But tell us some of the signs that you had in your daughter that maybe in retrospect you realized, oh, that was a clue.
Actually, there was no clue.
Yeah.
It was precipitated by a panic attack, but there were clues to that. Sarah had a lot of anxiety when she was a kid. If things were out of place, it freaked her out. I remember changing the living room, and she came home from school, and she was in a panic about it. It really upset her. Her room always had to be just so and neat, and she was really uptight. I remember being called to school in elementary school to be picked up, to be taken to the doctor because she seemed to have a headache or something, but they felt like she needed to go to the doctor. So I get her in the car, and she's having a migraine. Well, this was her first experience with a migraine. But, I'm kind of panicking listening to this pain that this child is in and rushing to the hospital. I don't know what to do. She had a panic attack one time when the kids were jumping on the bed in the new house. They were excited to be in the new house, and she was in middle school. And she fell, and she hit her head. And we didn't know if there was neurological damage or something because her hands started grasping and ungrasping. We called 911. And ambulance came, and men in white coats, and they got her calmed down. Now her dad and I did all the right things. We said all the right things. We did not panic. Her dad was an ECA. He was trained on being on an ambulance because he worked for Dell Computer, and they wanted trained people in their workplace, and so he did that. I was trained in CPR and first aid. through my massage therapy license. I had to do that every year. So we were very calm and so we did everything calmly. But these cute young men calmed her down. And by the time she got in the ambulance, she was just fine. But that was a panic attack, we came to find out later. So she had anxiety as a kid.
Mm.
But as I grew through my journey with mental wellness,
Mm.
my kids got a chance to see what that looked like
Mhm.
compared to what, unwellness looked like in my life. And so as I grew and changed and gained tools, so did they.
Mm.
And by the time she was in high school, she didn't get migraines anymore. She didn't have little panic attacks, except one. First week of freshman year, she
Mm.
could feel all the energy, all the
Mm.
unworthiness, and
Oh, so much in high school. Oh,
she could
so
feel it. She
thick.
was overwhelmed by all that energy.
Yeah.
And I remember she was a drama queen. And I remember the big crocodile tears. And can I just create a bubble around myself, protect myself from that energy, and send out love and get escapes from the bubble to the people because they need it, Mom. They need it. I need it. And she's gone on and on. And finally, she took a big, deep breath. And I said, well, Sarah, you just did. You created that bubble.
Mm.
You just did. And relief just washed over her, right? So she learned that she had power and that she could take control. But what happened was life stress. At 21, she had created a situation for herself that she really didn't understand and hadn't used the tools long enough to pull them out of her tool bag to help herself. And so she was in a lot of stress, and I was only aware of some of it.
Yeah,
You know,
because
she,
at that age, they kind of do their own thing and they
she
may
was
not
living in Tennessee. We talked on the phone once a
tell
week.
you anything, really.
Yeah, we lived separate lives. She was an
They're
adult.
like, stupid mom, you don't know anything. Pretty much.
Well, no, that's not
Oh,
true. She confided in me quite a bit.
that's good. Yeah, because a lot of kids don't, Stacy. A lot of
Yeah,
kids are like, I'm not telling my parent anything, right?
right. And I was a bootstrap kind of parent, right? So how are you going to figure this out? And how is that affecting your life? And
Oh, which is exactly what they say to do. That's what they say to do, right?
right,
They tell you like that's the best kind of parenting is when you listen non-judgmentally and you don't react and you just give them, how are you going to fix that and
right,
what are you going to do next and what tool you're going to pull out, right? They tell you like that's the best parenting.
right.
So you were
Well,
doing that.
I was doing that until one
Yeah.
day she called. I was teaching a class, and we happened to be on a 15-minute break. And so I answered the phone, and she was in the middle of a panic attack. And so, what do you do? Try to get the child to breathe. Do everything you can. I couldn't even understand what she was saying, what had happened, what was going on, where she was. She was in full-blown panic, hyperventilating.
Mm.
So we'll just make a long story short. She lost precious oxygen to her brain from that panic attack. And by the time I arrived in Tennessee, 24 hours later, almost, um, she was psychotic.
Mm.
And I didn't know that she shouldn't be left alone.
Mm.
I had no clue. I was exhausted because I was dealing with someone who was having a panic attack, someone that I loved.
Mm.
And she was clearly psychotic. And I had her on the phone with her dad. And to make a long story short, I left the house for a little while. I talked to her 10 minutes before I arrived. I had her dad call her, and I found her hanging in the closet.
Oh, Stacy, so sorry.
And so I took her down, and I had someone call 911, and I did CPR. And her body survived, but the brain damage was too great. And so it took her body 3 days to let go.
So hard, Stacy.
It's crazy. It's
So hard.
crazy. It can happen
And
in
10
instant,
minutes.
in an instant.
10 minutes.
Yeah. But where was that? That place she was in was a self-made place of shame and guilt.
Mm.
And that's kind of the bottom line, I think, for probably the majority of suicides.
It
And
is. Yeah.
my
I say
own,
my own journey too. Yeah.
yeah, my own.
Shame.
I was ashamed of myself. Why couldn't I be like everybody else? You know, why couldn't I just fit
Mm.
in? And why did I have to be different? And, so that was that moment of shame hit her for whatever reason. And she was gone.
Mm.
There were warning signs, but there were no warning signs, right? The reptilian brain took over. And
It
that's what
does that.
happens.
It does that. I'll tell you the brushes I've had with it, thank God I'm so stupid about things like how to use a knife. Because I'm just telling you, like, and thank God there's no pills in my house. Like there are no pills in my house. Because that alone has saved me. There was nothing accessible in my house that I could use for that purpose.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know how to tie knots, so I couldn't do what she did because I don't know how to tie a knot that would actually
You know,
hold,
it's
so
incredible how inventive one can be.
I don't know how to do that. So I was like,
Once,
and I don't want to mess it up. That was my main thing
right,
because I didn't want to mess it up. So I was like, because I don't want to survive that. So
right.
that's been my issue. It's like a good thing. I think it's kept me alive, my ignorance.
So statistically speaking, this is interesting, is that statistically speaking that women are 20 times more likely to attempt suicide,
Wow.
but men are the ones who follow through. Let's see, what was the statistic there?
That's interesting because men, just to guess, men might know how to use the right tool. Like I bet it's guns, right?
Yeah, something quick and
Mm-hmm.
easy. And we're not into that. I
No, I
mean,
don't like it. It's so
but in a
loud.
psychotic event, the
Your
reptilian
brain
brain
just,
has taken over,
yeah,
so
your
it
brain.
knows what tool and how to use it and how quick it'll go. You would not believe how she committed or how my sister-in-law took her own life. How simple and everyday it was. You wouldn't believe it. And it worked because they needed it to.
Mm.
They needed it to.
So here's the thing then, knowing that, then the goal is to help somebody to have tools so that the reptilian brain never actually gets a chance to go into that downward spin.
Yes, that's right. That's right. And the easiest tool is EFT, tapping. It's
Mm.
the easiest tool in the world. I love teaching that to young parents, and I ask them to go home and teach it to their kids because that's how you learn anything anyway, right?
You practice it.
You practice it, you teach it. Now, Sarah knew how to tap, right? But did she practice it? Did she use it daily? I
Well,
mean,
but see, this is part of the quandary because when your brain starts to move in that cycle, that
hmm
downward cycle,
hmm
you're so resistant to doing any of the things that you actually know would take you out of that spin.
unless it's second nature and
That's
you
a
never
second
reach
nature.
that spin
Yeah.
anymore because you've practiced it so much, that spin isn't going to happen in your life.
Because you built that neural pathway in your brain
That's right.
that, oh, when this starts to happen, go here.
Exactly. Exactly. And how easy is tapping? I mean, it's super easy. I love doing that. And you know what? You'll start noticing people are tapping in restaurants. People are tapping
Yeah.
everywhere. They are. It's finally becoming popular. What did we learn it 20 years ago? But people are finally getting it. They're so stressed out. They're grabbing at anything, and it really works. It really works. So that's my favorite tool. I'll be putting that up, I think, in one of the months that we do the Skills Not Pills movement. Everybody needs to get in the movement.
Yeah, I think so
We need to get
too.
in there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So speaking of getting in there, we have our first live event. Once again, it's coming up on September 10th,
Yeah.
Monday, September 10th, 7 to 8:30 p.m. Central Time. And it's free. We're giving this one away for free. This is going to be a benefit of membership, but we are giving it away for free this time so you guys can test drive it and see what we're creating behind the scenes. And Yeah, we're going to be providing, our experts are providing skills and DIY and meditations and Q&A sessions and all kinds of valuable content to help you on your journey use the skills, actually use the skills, implement them. And it's so much easier when you're in a community of like-minded people deciding to choose another whole way of living your life than when you're sort of like trying to do it yourself, but you're surrounded by naysayers, you know? So much easier to be in community. So that's what we're creating, is that community to help you shift into a whole new way in your brain, get your brain working in a different way, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
It's all
So
about the brain.
skillsnotpillsmovement.com. I hope you guys join us. And, you know, Stacey, I just want to say in closing, like, thank you so much for being so transparent and vulnerable and sharing this story. I know, you know, I know how difficult that must be. I haven't experienced it, knock on wood, but, you know, I know as a parent how that would make me feel. And, you know, that's a really hard thing. So I really appreciate you sharing your heart, and not only that, but taking all of that pain that you've experienced in your life and transforming it into being of service to other people. What a blessing and a gift that is.
Thank you for giving me the space to share it.
No, so everybody, I hope that you got something useful out of this broadcast. And, you know, we're here for you. We're excited to lead this movement. Stacey's one of our experts. And I look forward to getting to know you, and I look forward to seeing you next time on Skills Not Pills Movement.
Have a great day.
Bye, everybody.